there as well.
But also, like the lifeboat coming down the road. The inshore boats. They're a bit bigger than the little seagulls we've got.
They are, aren't they?
I don't know whether it's been out or is just going out.
Guys, come to the Lifeboat station. I'm Lee, I'm the Campervan.
Ah! Oh yeah! Right, cheers! We were on our way to for a coffee, and as you saw, we saw the lifeboat, and we were told to come and have a chat. So I think he knows us.
I think he might.
Or recognise us. We'll see.
So this is Lee, who subscribes to us, and he did have a campervan until recently. And you're part of the RNLI crew, and you've been.
New Brighton.
I'm going to stand near you because I've got a microphone on.
So I'm here at New Brighton on the Wirral. So I'll give you guys a tour in a little while. But we've just been on an exercise this morning on our rib. They're all named. This one's called Charles Dibden. It's an Atlantic 85 fast response inshore rescue boat. But we'll give you a proper tour. If you see on the ground, there's a net. That net is used to kind of recover the boat when it's really rough weather. We sort of catches it.
Yeah.
And we've been practicing doing that today, as long as tractor driving skills and navigation in sort of rough weather. So I'll have to do my jobs for a bit, guys.
Yeah, that's brilliant. We'll see you in a bit.
bit.
Cheers. So we'll come back about what? About 12:30, something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'd say 12:30.
Yeah, brilliant. All right. We'll have to go and grab a coffee then.
Well, yeah. Well, you've got Costa, you've got a Morrison's, Starbucks.
Yeah,
we've got
a
choice.
All right, cheers.
This is the kind of lovely stuff. We love each other. But yeah, give you a proper tour.
Yeah, cheers. See you in a bit.
Oh, fantastic.
She's got to meet the dogs.
Oh yeah. Oh, lovely, brilliant. Oh, excellent.
Well, yeah, we've got treats, so you can.
Oh, we'll bring them over.
Human treats or dogs. Great. Grand. So I'll explain about New Brighton then. So. Right here. So, welcome to New Brighton Lifeboat Station on the Wirral. We say the Wirral because you're on a peninsula. Wirral is nowadays classed as Merseyside, but originally it was classed as Cheshire. So just to confuse things, we have a Cheshire postcode, but we're classed as Merseyside, which is L. So people on the Wirral like to consider themselves separate from Liverpool, but we're all Merseyside. But we love. I work in Liverpool, so I love Liverpool. So this is New Brighton. New Brighton was sort of formed in the 1800s, modelled on Brighton, on the east coast, trying to make it like that. So in the late 1800s, early 1900s, we had a Lido in this area here now, which up until 2007, this was derelict land. 1990, I think it was, the Lido got destroyed in storms and it just became derelict land. This is my friends here. These guys are video loggers for YouTube channel. There we go. So, you okay?
Yeah.
Great. Okay, I'm just doing a little interview. Go on, you carry it. No, I'll catch up with you later. You want? I'll catch up with you later. Sorry about that, guys.
That's all right.
Lifeboat life. So, for many years, this area was derelict. You know, shopping trolleys, cars burnt out, and then they developed this area. So, New Brighton used to have its own tower, taller than Blackpool. If you looked on the internet, type in New Brighton Tower, you'll see all that. But as a result, our lifeboat station here is affected by all this traffic. So we travel with this tractor at about 17 miles an hour, just over half a mile down the road. So it's fairly quiet today, but some days it's really difficult. So
Oh, we saw
yeah.
when we saw you before when you shouted at us. We saw that traffic wasn't really moving over for you.
Absolutely, it doesn't. You know, and we're not the police. We don't have the right to push people out of the way. We have blue lights, but that's as a hazard warning. So we don't have the right to go through red lights, even though we're emergency service. We're a voluntary emergency services tasked by the Coast Guard. So we're all volunteers providing a service for the Coast Guard. So it's more the flashing lights is to warn sort of people. So, and the other things, we don't want to upset the people. The public support the RNLI, and if we upset the public, they're not going to support the RNLI. So we originally, what we have here is an inshore lifeboat, an inflatable boat. Up until 1971, we had an all-weather boat, the old-fashioned sort of type of boat, because Brighton had a pier. As soon as that became derelict, we lost our boat, and then he formed the new inshore boats. And this was originally like a shed, and the tractor would have been half a mile down the road, borrowed from a farmer. But now we have, you know, around about 80 call-outs a year, so we can't wait for other people to come. So we have a bendy tractor. If you want to come along this way, there's some unique features of our tractor. There's a 9.3 ton tractor developed for the RNLI, and unique bendy being the bit that it bends in the middle. This is a Mark II bendy, so it uses electric motors on the wheels and hydraulics. It's incredibly powerful. They're designed that if they have to be abandoned, if you can't get it out of the water for some reason, you can cover up the hatches and escape from the roof. But it's still, and these are sealed off as well, but it all takes time to do that. So it's really rough, then you don't want to be putting yourself at risk. So when it's in the water, this door will be closed and sealed. We keep the hatch open ajar, so we have to get out in emergency. Get out. The tractor operators have to wear a life jacket. What's going on here?
So are there a number of tractor operators, or do you have one specifically for?
No, there's we've got just over 30 crew, and there's about offhand there's about eight or nine sort of tractor drivers. Right. So like me, I'm on the boat, and we also so I'm on the boat and also tractor driver as well. So when you arrive, you just wait to see what you need or who's coming. Yeah. Well, you need to be a tractor driver today. You jump in there. So it's a big responsibility. It's a lot of equipment.
And expensive equipment.
Expensive, and people have put the money in the piggy banks to fund us with that. So we're very respectful of it. Any new people, any new crew coming in, we're all volunteers, and we just make sure from the start that they respect the equipment, because people have paid for that. So we don't do silly things with it.
How do you do for volunteers? Is
we're
it a constant?
We're full at the
evolving,
moment. So it's constantly, if people move, their circumstances change, jobs change, or their interests might take them elsewhere. Some people sign up and they can't commit to this sort of level of input, because it's not just the shouts that the call outs. You also need to do there's training that's required as well. And if you don't just turn up, you've got to do a lot of homework training as well. Reading up on various lights and all sorts of things at home to get you to the level. So typically it'll take someone a year to 2 years to get them to the level where they're safe and competent, because even though we're volunteers, we all have to be competent. So to be a declared rescue asset, you have to meet standards, and that's having an infrastructure that involves all the training. My job is, as well as tractor driver and boat crew, is LTC, Lifeboat Training Coordinator, which involves all 30 people managing their plans, their training plans, and make sure that they're up to date and push people a bit. But we kind of do a sort of last person in trains, the sort of the next one kind of thing, to keep their information sort of fresh.
I mean, I've often wondered, we watch the programme on the BBC and whatever, how do employees, or employers I should say, how do they deal? Are they mostly quite happy, or do you sometimes get on?
It's the sort of thing, if your work is nearby, it's arranging. I used to work for Wirral Council, and I was only exactly 1.5 miles up the road. My employer was fine with that. And so if I needed to be on a call out, I would send them it's like a pre-programmed text message that populated everything, and it told them that I need to cancel my next visit or something like that. You have to be honest with your employer. People are home working now, but I'm home working. I work for Liverpool Council, but I hadn't arranged with them to do shouts because I work in Liverpool, so I don't respond during the daytime hours, Monday to Friday. But they give me time if I need to do training and the likes of that. But other people, as long as they've got permission off their employers, quite a few people are self-employed as well, so they don't need to worry about that. But we have a system where it's called RCAMs, where you book on and off so that we can plan to make sure we've got enough people, because even though there's lots of us around, not all going to be available. So you need to make sure you've got enough tractor drivers, you've got a launch authority to authorise launch, and crew as well to manage that. So before COVID, we were getting about 40 call-outs a year, and during COVID times we had over 100 call-outs. Once people were starting to do more leisure, it's like people who did leisure that never did it before. So we have a lot of sandbanks out there and tidal cut-offs, and people don't understand the tides, so we were getting a lot of them. So see you, Mike, all the best. So now that things have settled down with COVID, there's still a lot more leisure activities going on. So we're averaging about 80 call-outs a year at the moment. These are all volunteers, so basically you're assumed to be available unless if you're not available. If you're going out on the ale or whatever, you sign off, and you just check that there's enough people. If there's not enough people available, then you need to see if they can manage it, because you can't get to the point where you're absolute minimum and one person didn't turn up, you'd be stuck. So it's a constant process of managing it, and all volunteers. So
I mean, I know you said leisure. So is it because people seem to go into the paddleboarding now? Is it mostly
yes, people paddleboarding, kite surfers. I mean, with leisure, it's people walking. A lot of people walking cut off. A lot of despondent individuals. We don't publicise them as much, but we're getting a lot of potential harm,
mental health issues.
So there's a lot of media attention is rightly going in that direction to try and support people. And the RNLI will always respond to whatever the Coast Guard asks us to do. But it could mean for some hours that we're waiting just to be supported in case people do that. Other professionals on the shore side are doing the talking, but we're just there as a water asset in case they were to enter the water. And sometimes searching for people that think might be missing. They may have gone in the water or not, so we have to practice. Today was search patterns and doing that. It can happen any time of night. Last week we had two shouts in one evening, just before 7 p.m. and another shout just after 10 p.m. Right. So it's constant, and then you've got to go to work the next day. You're tired and clean down every day as well.
This is inshore.
This is inshore lifeboat, so fast response. So you have
what kind of distance would you go out?
You've got 2.5 hours at full speed. So we would tend to cover out sort of Queen's Channel area. I mean, you've got the bar. Trying to think offhand, I think it's about 12 miles away. We wouldn't tend to go that far. We've got an all-weather boat and a flanking station at Hoylake. They would do the long distances. They've also got hovercraft, because there's the Anthony Gormley statues at Crosby and lots of mud area. We used to originally have the hovercraft, but Hoylake now have it.
We saw the hovercraft yesterday.
You've seen that? And there's also further around the Wirral and West Kirby, there is a D-class boat, which is the smaller versions of these boats. So you've got a D-class, which is a 3-person sort of boat with like a tiller, single engine. And then the next class is here, the B-class Atlantic 85. 85 refers to the 8.5 metres. Twin engine boats, so incredibly sort of powerful. The RNLI well engineers everything, so these are inversion proof. So if the boat was to tip over, the boat can be rewrited, and it will be
what powers in those then? What powers in the engines?
Well, that's the 115, so twin 115 4-stroke. So if you were to capsize, you have release handles that allow us to put it back over, and then this bag on top of the A-frame there would inflate from underneath, and then it would flip it around, and then we go back in, and you're either potentially under the boat still, or you've been thrown around somewhere. But it hasn't happened at station here. But you go to the RNLI College and Pool, you go and practice the training for that sort of scenario if it was to happen, and you have to regularly practice to be sure that you can get from the water into the boat unassisted. as well. We don't regularly put people in the water because we don't want to put our crew at risk as well. But you do have to make definite times that you practice your self-recovery to make sure that people remember how to do it if in rough weather you end up in the water. So when we're rescuing people, taking them from the water, we try not to put crew members in the water because that's another problem. Then we've then another person to bring in. So you've got a helm that drives the boat and 3 available crew on the boat. So we tend to try and get up to the person, pulling them in from the water, giving them a throw line as well so that they can hold on to it as well. And there's a few other tricks. You can lower the edges of the boat and it'll still stay afloat and get them in. But usually with 2 people or even a 3rd person, we'll get people in. But people also might need some first aid attention. So we're what we call as casualty carers. So not every crew member is a casualty carer. It's a 3 full-day course to be done and then regular sort of training as well. So we make sure that there's always some casualty carers on the boat, and we've got a system with check cards that we go through that. And the important intention is really to get back as quick as we can. You can access helicopters out at sea, but it takes some time. Campervan is the Coast Guard helicopter, so sometimes it's quicker to actually get back to shore than it might be for the helicopter, unless they've already been tasked and on the way to us.
So not only do you have to guarantee that you've got enough crew to do everything, but you've got all the different jobs.
Absolutely, and then you've got to
carers and everything.
Absolutely, it's a huge resource to it's a management. So the person that manages the station is the lifeboat operations manager is also a volunteer. Our particular one, Ian, is he's retired, former police officer, but that's more than a full-time job for him. So he has deputy launching authorities to assist him as well. But me, as like an experienced crew member, I'm trying to give back as well. Helping new people coming in and try and take the pressure off other people. But it's a constant, ever evolving. I mean, we're planning our next future helmsman or male or female helms. But that's a 2-year sort of process of training, really. So we're planning ahead for those next people. So we're just qualifying 2 helmsmen now, but we're looking at replacements for others as well, further down the line, so that if anyone was to leave, we've got people to come in. And the crew themselves have to be trained. In the RNLI college, it's got lots of courses that in Poole in Dorset. So the RNLI headquarters are there, and then they will do lots of residential courses where they'll focus on navigation for 2 days solid, but they're very much oversubscribed. So we're all. I did a navigation course in March. That was sort of 3 days, and then in December last year, I had to renew my crew emergency procedures where all the capsize and into life rafts and all those scenarios. So lots of training. When I started in 2007, I just got married and I started up. Didn't realize I'd kind of committed myself to quite such a huge outfit, and also my family are affected by it as well. Because
that's it.
I mean they support me, but the reality is I'm dropping everything. So it's and it's good. It means you drink less. You can't, if you've had a few drinks, you can't come. So definitely you have to think about it, because if you were to have a few drinks at home, you're off service. So you got to plan for those kind of things. So, but I mean the other thing, you got to have a life as well. Because if you were to try and do too much, you just alienate your family. But things like you can still go to weddings and celebrations. You just sign off and make sure that there's cover for you. So this boat is being developed, I think early 2000. I think they started to prototype this boat. So our previous boat was an Atlantic 75. You had 3 people on board. You had 1 helmsman and 2 crew members. This one allows 4. So you've got helmsman, navigator, radar, and the radio operator, and the 4th person is an extra set of eyes. And also just an extra hand on the boat as well. So we don't encourage people to be sitting on the tubes when we're travelling, because it's not safe. So our casualties, the people we rescue, they would take the seats, and we'll sit on the floor or kneel beside them. Or if they're in special bags to keep them warm, they might be lying down and get them back to the beach as quickly as we can. The boats are all named after usually the largest sort of donator towards the funding of the boat. So this one's Charles Dibdin, Civil Service number 51. which was the I think part of BT, I believe originally. So the Civil Service Fund, and this was the 51st boat, but they funded a number of boats since then.
And how long will this boat last you?
Well, traditionally you would expect, I think it was 10, 12 years, but we've had this since 2009, so they don't put a time limit on it anymore. They go on condition-based assessment. So if it's needing more and more work done, they might look to replace it. So there's no end date given for this really. Every 4 years, we would tend to have a full sort of refit. We'd take it down to the hull and rebuild it back up with new parts, new engines, new A-frame. So you kind of get it, you come back with a new boat anyway. So it's the only original bit would be sort of the hull.
Yeah.
So this trailer, the intention of this trailer is so that the person, well, the helm will drive the boat straight out at full speed. We have tanks, so water is running to the engines here.
Okay.
These hoses, which need to be connected, will be allowing water to feed the engine so that as we're making our way to the launch site, it can get off quickly, the engines can pre-warm, rather than just going straight turn on then sort of gone. Everything is, launching is about, the best sort of speed we possibly can. When you recover it back, you reverse it in, ready for the next launch, which will be quick. If you've got a casualty and you've got time, it doesn't need to be urgent, we'll reverse like this. But if it's urgent, you need, because it takes time to reverse into the trailer, especially if the revers are off. We've got the options of do we just go onto the beach, gently nosing on, and then people assist off the boat, or we have the net that you saw earlier on, where you pull the net up and you literally drive into the net forward, and we put ropes on to stop it coming out. And that's the quickest way to get back, but it takes time for the shore crew to set that up, so you can't just last minute change your mind, it won't be ready. So so the boats are designed to tolerate some kind of beach sort of landing, but not at sort of full speed. So the carriage is also split, so it's hydraulic, it will actually lift up as well, because once we're low water, the beach drops off very suddenly. We've been having problems where we were getting a bit stuck at times at really low water, so by having a third set of wheels, it actually means that we've got more underneath us at really low sort of tide. So these are, you don't even notice really, but the driving wheel is this. This is slightly lower than the rest, and then these other ones are slightly higher. So if you were on the road, you might notice that this one's moving and the others potentially aren't, but slightest sort of incline and the others all sort of kicking. But that just gives us a bit more support when going down a really low water, because in New Brighton, it's just the beach drops off really quite sharp, and then you risk not getting your tractor out. So you've got to be very careful at very low water launching and recovering.
And how's the service doing?
The RNLI, I think they weathered COVID better than anticipated, but it's a constant process of requesting support from the public. Open days are really important for the station recovery. I think the running costs, I believe, are about £100,000 to run the station, and then they hope that you'll try and raise your own funds as much as possible. Obviously, the public donations go towards it as well, but any repairs to the boat sustained during training, or like propellers, it's a few £100s. It all adds up, which is why people need to practice and respect the equipment. But yeah, it's a constant trying to get people to support us financially. It's not something that goes away. I mean, all the maintenance of the building costs increase, so we're affected by that.
So you have to. Do you rent this building then? Do you have to pay
I think
tax, council tax or anything?
I think it's a peppercorn rent.
Right.
It's sort of, whether it be £1 a month or a year or something like that. I think that's the kind of thing that we have really. So we work very well with the local council, providing the building, or the RNLI might provide the building, and the ground rent might be negotiated. So the council's very supportive of us
Which
as well.
It needs to be, doesn't it?
Yep, absolutely, providing a service and protection. And the RNLI in New Brighton, all the beaches are no longer council lifeguarded beaches, they're RNLI lifeguarded beaches. So what the council spent on beaching lifeguards is put towards the RNLI, and they top it up with the charitable funding as well, so they get a great sort of service, which is, I think, full time from June onwards. From April onwards until June, it's just weekends, but June onwards, I think it's full time, and that's really helped us a lot because they are our eyes and ears, and so they can be more aware of situations and let us know. People getting cut off is often something that they pick up on earlier, and then we can get launched. Because it takes us typically from sitting down having your Sunday dinner, if we can be in the water within 10 minutes, that's good. We're happy with that. But to do that, it's quite a feat. You know, when you think of it, we're all sitting at home, not manning the station, opening the doors, everybody doing their own jobs. This is where you've got to be really good and practiced. Everyone knows their job, setting the boat up, crew getting ready, and then driving it safely along the road and not injuring people on the way, because we don't want to injure people as part of the process. And
I mean, I know exactly what you mean about being cut off. I mean, we were just on the beach this morning with the dogs.
Oh, yeah, you see,
just stood there watching the dogs, and all of a sudden the water's coming either side of us, and it was that quick.
Quickly, definitely.
So it's no wonder it takes people by surprise.
So when we're training as well, we use up a lot of public space for training like the tractor driving, but we don't want to upset people as well, but we don't want to injure dogs as well. So trying to get crew to make sure that they're respectful of that as well, because we don't want to upset people for sure. But it's very rewarding, incredibly rewarding. It's I've done it for 15 years. I'm carrying it on.
So is there an age cut-off?
That's constantly changed. When I started in 2007, they had just stopped ending it at 45 years on the boat.
Right.
So then they introduced it up to 50 years, and then they introduced it up to 55, and then just recently they've changed it completely. Now it's up to 65.
Right.
And I'm 50 now, and I can't see me doing that until that long. But our senior helmsman, I think he's 62 or 63. He's still doing it.
So what's your age demographic here in this station?
Here, well, you've got about half a dozen are in sort of 50s, maybe not for me. Yeah, it's about that. And then the younger sort of 20s, 30s, 40s. So this is part of the planning ahead for each of your station. You've got to make sure that your helmsman who's in charge of the boat, that they're ready for it. You've got to train up that younger demographic and pass on that knowledge. But even if you were too old to be on the boat, there's other roles. You've got tractor driving as well, or launch authorities, or even a shore crew, which is there's always a role. If your needs change at station and you feel you can't commit the time to being on the crew, there's other things you can do, so you don't have to give it all.
And you know that there's, like you say, there's always going to be a job there that you can
absolutely do. So, and the shop is an important, the fundraising is a huge part of the RNLI as well. So our partners, some of them are involved in the shop activities and fundraising as well. Because as well as manning the boat, we participate in a lot of fundraising and attending. We get a lot of station visits, which is a great fundraiser for us. But it also raises the profile, because it's not all about fundraising. It's about getting that safety message. So any visits to station, or by school groups and scouts and guides, is all done to try and promote safety awareness of the water as well.
Well, when we were over at Hoylake yesterday and we were looking at the memorial there, a lot of family members. Is that still the case these days? You still get a lot of family?
Not so much here. So much. It was on the all-weather boats. The Hoylake was one of them as well. So if you look at the ones here, I think there's names. Not quite sure if you're going to see much in the way of names here, but certainly a lot of family members. So you'll see on the some of the pictures with names on them. I think the Cross family, there's quite a number of them. Several generations were involved. But Hoylake especially, that's renowned.
When you're looking at the names, it looked to be like probably brothers and then sons and nephews. And
So we don't have that here. There's quite a large turnover of crew here, just because of the demographics of the area. Certainly. So
I can't believe the gear they've got these days, because I worked on the beach patrol here 40 years ago.
Oh gosh, right. Well,
they've got quad bikes, cars.
Oh, the RNLIs, yeah.
All I had was a bloody whistle.
It's crazy, isn't it? Yeah. Well, this is why having the RNLI, you get the assets you need as well. So, but the RNLI are good at keeping it safe, because recently they've stopped us. When we launched for a shout, we would always be on the boat, but they've evaluated this and realised that you're actually quite at risk, because if you have an RTA stop suddenly on this, you slam into it. So now they provided another vehicle for boat crew to go ahead So they do look after us. They give us the absolute very best kit, and we learn how to use it safely.
And things are moving on all the time, aren't they, in safety?
Oh, absolutely. When they're looking at seating at the moment, there's various prototypes of suspension seating to try and help us, because if they are extending the age up, you know, they need to think about people's bones as well. So that's why they can raise the age, because they've improved what we're actually on. Things like the fuel, there's a trailer there needs to be filled up. You know, that's a voluntary role. We don't have a tanker at station. I have to go and take the truck and the trailer to Tesco's and get the fuel. So all those are things that need to keep an eye on, and just requires.
And companies like that don't give you any discounts on fuel or anything?
No, they don't. No. I think there's a tax saving for the RNLI in general. There's I think some tax saving on it, but no, we pay the cost. We have a fuel card, and it goes on to that, and the RNLI sorts out the other bit. But yeah, you've got to, you know, spend money on the fuel to do the training to get people to that level. So we train a minimum of every 2 weeks at the moment. Anything additional, so if any training of helmsmen or other crew, we'll do an additional launch just specific for that activity. Because today we had 2 change arounds of crew, which meant you only had 40 minutes each, whereas if you want a dedicated real learning session, you want 2 or 3 hours, so they might just do a launch just for those sort of people. So
I suppose your training could be any time, night or day, can't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, but we are, it does change. We have a weekday session is 6 o'clock in the evening, and then the weekends are done on a Sunday, and that's always at 9 in the morning. So you get daylight and you get dark, and in the winter you can guarantee it'll be dark in the evening one. So we're grateful of that Sunday one. So every second exercise is always a Sunday, so that we can get some daylight to practice that as well. Winters are hard. You go out with all weathers. There's a limit to how far you go out, but it is hard being on the beach, supporting the boat. So
choppy sea today as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so whilst the boat was out, we were doing tractor driver training. Got some trainee drivers, and we were on the beach supporting them and guiding them with all the spray and everything in our faces. So, but it's fun. It's incredibly rewarding. But you just have to very understanding people back home to.
And you become a family, don't you? You become a family.
Oh, you become absolutely, definitely. You know, you're always in contact with each other and stuff. So definitely, and your families become good friends as well. So, Keith, you're welcome to go on the boat if you want to have a wander onto it. Just don't fall over. Yep, you can step over. I'll show you the best way to get on. There you go. So, how are your knees?
Fine.
Oh, good, right. So you can go over like this, and then get yourself on like that. Brilliant. This will be one of these kind of blooper moments. Right, feel free. So this is the boat prepared, ready for the next shout. So it's currently wet from an exercise session, so we've opened up all the lockers just so that any moisture comes out. So part of the prepping for a shout, the call out, will be closing all these lockers, lowering the seat, and making sure the radio is on. When we get outside, the mast will be raised up, ready to go. And then, so we get a call out through the Coast Guard, 999, and then on the way to the launch site we get more information. Helm chooses their crew. They have to get changed as quick as we can, and it could be any time, day or night, so we don't get to choose that. Sometimes the call out gets stopped on the way to the launch site. Sometimes it could be out for several hours at a time. You don't get to choose. And if you're out too long and you're all fatigued, then we can do a crew change on the beach, but we try and stay on as long as we can.
So what's the...
This is radar.
So you got the radars. The dome. You got the big white dome is radar, and then the one with the spindly bits. That's the direction finding equipment. So you can use that's this console here. So it's got like a compass rose. So if you've got a casualty vessel and they communicate with them on VHF, you can send them to a channel, and then the red dot is where they are on the compass. So it rose is to relation to your bearing So if you were transmitting, they were transmitting to you, and their red dot appeared over there, you turn to port, heading in that direction until it becomes on you, and that's a fantastic
So there's communication between this
and the casualty vessel if they have a VHF. So sorry, the helm. Yeah, the helm's got that, but he doesn't have the information come up on the screen. He's got depth, and we would tell the person in the helm which way to to turn. They've got a standard compass rota. If we give them a bearing of which course to steer to, they will have to go off that, and it takes time for that to move as well. You've got to. And all crew practice that. It's not just the helmsman that does the driving. The helmsman might want to sit to the back and command. All crew have to be able to operate the boat safely and be able to drive to a course. The helm might choose to be the one assisting in navigating, and then me or another crew person will be driving it under the instruction of someone else telling me which way to go. So that's part of the training as well, is having that.
I know you can't generalise, but is there an age group where you see you're doing more shouts to an age group? You know, like, is it more youngsters, or does it really just vary that much?
It depends. Not. I wouldn't say so much in the way of teenagers. I mean, the despondent mental health problems, you know, that there are varying ages of that. But the people, you know, the tidal cut-offs, they're all sort of family age. Yeah. Then you'll get your kite surfers who'll maybe a younger generation and stuff. So they're all sort of varying really. So it depends on the activity of what you're being called out on. I mean, most of the shouts are all unfortunate events. It might be a boat that's got a mechanical issue. Yeah. That they need assistance. You know, people aren't being idiots. No. All we encourage is that people have the means to keep themselves safely afloat. If they say like kite surfing, and also a means to call for assistance as well is really important. Sometimes we get called out, a person's reported a potential problem, we go and investigate, and they're actually fine, they know what they're doing. Yeah. But you know, good intent kind of thing. So recently we had a shout where we thought somebody was walking into the water with a backpack, and then but it was planned, it was a fisherman with a net in his bag, so it was perfectly fine. When we went up to them, they knew what they were doing, but from a distance it's hard to tell. So we went and investigated, and you know, that's it, nothing done wrong, and then we could carry on back and wash down. So
you can't ignore anything though.
No, absolutely, you got it. Yeah, so the Coast Guard will ask us to investigate. Yeah, and that's what we do. So we'll investigate to make sure that everybody's okay, and then give the information back to the Coast Guard and let them make a sort of decision as well.
And is it like anything else these days where you get back from a shout and there's a heck of a lot of paperwork to fill in? And
well, it's computerized, so the crew here don't have to worry about that. So the helmsman and the launch authorities have got paperwork to fill in, but it is necessary paperwork. Well, and if the RNLI doesn't get that information back, they won't know what sort of shouts that they're getting. So they can see, well, we're getting more issues of potential drownings, we need to invest more education. And then, so that's what governs the RNLI's approach to where like for example, the hovercraft was brought to New Brighton early 2000s because of an increase in cut-offs in the area of Morecambe Bay. There was a lot of cocklepickers sadly died, and the risk was here as well. And then it moved over to Hoylake. So there's still a need for it. So the type of those shouts have to be recorded so that we can justify the existence of this boat as well.
So putting you on the spot now.
Oh, heck.
3 bits of advice to people if they get into trouble in the water.
Absolutely. Well, I would first of all advise people, before they even get to the water, to go to the RNLI website and look at the education that is available. The RNLI is promoting Float to Live. That's what to do when you're in the water.
Keith is about the only bloke or person that I know who can't float.
Oh wow!
And I've tried to teach him to float for years now. He sinks. He just cannot do it.
Well, if you go to the website rnli.org.uk, there's a lot of education there, and there's a lot of things for family, for kids, fun stuff as well in the education. But if you're participating in any activity that is in the water, I encourage you to have a means to call for assistance. If you're within a mobile phone signal, then by all means put your phone in a waterproof pouch. Another means to keep you afloat as well in the water. And if you are on boats, there's a lot of advice on the RNLI website about keeping you safe and prepared for eventuality, having spare fuel, having flares and means to call for assistance. VHF radios are an incredibly important tool if you're regularly afloat on the water, and there are courses available to how to operate them as well. But having means to call for assistance and understanding tides as well. But that advice is on the RNLI website, certainly. So we don't mind being called out. We don't judge people. We don't shout or tell people off. No. But the important thing is getting people home safely.
And these floats that you see people taking out when they're open water, they're worth people's buying, or?
Well, yeah, I think most of these people are usually a part of some sort of group, but those floats they're a marker to people that they're in the water.
Yeah.
They can assist with some flotation, but also some of them, I think you're able to store like a mobile phone in it. We've with Saving Lives at Sea, the BBC programme, we featured on that with open water swimmers, where we recovered them. They got caught out and we were on one of these posts, clinging on for dear life, and we rescued them. And they had floats, but
I think I saw that one.
The answer to anything. So they are an important thing, but the stations all have their own education officers that will do water safety advice. But the RNLI website's a good starting point to follow that. But
not as inflated as I thought it would be.
No, they don't need to be. Well, that's as much as it needs to be. In the summer, in the heat, that would go really hard. So yeah, I think it's something like 2.5 or 3 psi. Might be a little bit more in the winter, but that's as much as you need, really. It also takes an impact as well, and it sort of flexes. I mean, the boat obviously doesn't flex, but you kind of sometimes you have to be sitting on the edge of it as well, so you don't want them bursting as well. We have essential equipment on here, but it's just equipment enough to do our job. We don't have any spare junk. We've got a couple of bars of chocolate, a couple of bottles of water, but we're an inshore boat, so we can go back to shore if we need to, whereas the all-weather boat could be out for up to 24 hours if need be, and they've got a whole host of survival.
Have you ever crewed an all-weather boat?
No, I haven't, no. I've always been New Brighton, so I've been
you don't get a chance to experience anywhere else?
No, you don't. You stick to your patch. I mean, any volunteer needs to be within a close reach. Within a mile to 2 miles of the station, really, to be able to respond quickly like that. So.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
I don't know if you're interested in what the numbers are all about. So this number that's the number of the boat. This is Bravo 837. It's a B class, and it's the 85, which is the 8, and the 37 is the 37th boat that they produced.
Right.
So we're Bravo 837, but we go by New Brighton Lifeboat. The reason why that is there, so when you're working with helicopters, they can identify you. Because other boats in the RNLI, they all have that sort of thing, so they can easily be doing multi-vessel searching with a helicopter to know which vessel they might be sort of referring to as well. So the RNLI have backup boats, relief boats, so if this got damaged in any way or is being refurbished, you would end up with another boat. That'll be Bravo 823, but then it eventually gets classed as New Brighton Lifeboat when you're on the radio. And so every boat is logged where they are throughout the UK. So people who are funding these boats, it might not be one that's permanently on station, but it's sitting ready to, if something seriously wrong went with this, we're off service and people are at risk. So within the regions, there are boats available. If not Poole and Dorset, where they will send one up within 12 hours. You might have a backup boat. Same with the tractor. Within 12 hours, usually you've got one sort of sorted. But it's being constantly available. If we damage the boat, then we can't respond. Or they call restricted service, where you can't potentially do a particular type of shouts. But so this is our. We've got lots more pictures, but there isn't space to put them up. So the previous boat, this was the one, the B549. That was our originally Atlantic 21. They started in 1971. Then it became the Atlantic 75, the 7.5 meters, and then to this one, the Atlantic 85, 8.5 meters.
And what's the bell?
The bell, I'm not sure the history of the bell, but it was donated, and what we do now with the bell is any new volunteer, once they attend their first rescue, they get to ring the bell after. Right. So we introduced that a few years ago, so a bit of fun, but we don't routinely ring it because it's blooming loud. It's recently been polished because we had the open day, so it's all looking nice and sort of shiny.
It's just out of child reach, is it? When you
Oh yeah, just deliberately so. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, so we've got rope here. So this is for anchoring. So the boat might need to be kept in station. Yeah. But you can also do a thing called veering, which is an extension of anchoring. So your anchor is held down, and you've got rocks, so you can then reverse yourself, controlled up to the rocks, so you're not crashing into them. So if you were to go into rocks without access to an anchor, you could end up seriously damaging you and the boat and the people you're rescuing. So you've got to practice all those kind of things as well. So lots of hatches for inspection hatches are here, and ropes for anchors. This is connected to the back of the boat, so the sea anchor. So if the boat went upside down, this would open up like a parachute drug, comes out, and that fills with water, and it brings the boat sort of head to sea. So if it was upside down,
the design and technology that goes into it all,
it's phenomenal. I mean, so a lot of people say, why do we not get funded by the government? I think something like 1% is government funding, but the RNLI decides where that money goes, which is good news for us because our safety is the absolute utmost, and having a fleet that responds appropriately. So by having volunteers, they can counter that. So I'm quite happy with how it works, because it means for me I can go home safely at the end of the night. My family will know that we've got the best kit. The training is in-house, but the RNLI support it. They've got staffed regional assessors and trainers to support us with our training as well. So we don't have to just make up the training. Excuse me. It's a standardised training that we almost meet that sort of criteria.
You're not getting that interference from outside agencies.
Absolutely not. So the RNLI manages it itself quite well. So it's competing with other charities, but sorry, they do a good job of media coverage, and we all make sure that we welcome people as well to the station. I mean, we're a very big part of the community, and we love it. Incredibly rewarding. People do like us, and we love the community. You go down the road and get waved at. Love it, and kids love it, and we respond to that positively as well. So that's why open days are great, or days like today where the shop is open till 3 p.m. People are welcome to come around and have a look, and we don't encourage people on the boat.
No,
because of safety. But they're welcome to sort of look around.
And I guess that Saving Lives at Sea, the BBC programme, has helped a lot as well as to raise the profile.
Well, I think it's on its 7th series, I think now, coming in October. And New Brighton Lifeboat will feature in that with some rescues in Crosby. So it's great for the station, and the crew love it as well. But it's a bit worrying at times when my wife watches at home to see what things can go wrong.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, are you sure about this? But thankfully, we've always come back safe. So. Yeah.
Right, that's brilliant.
So this is our old all-weather boat. So these are service boards. So it shows you how different things were back then. Where that you might not have that many shouts. We're getting 80 shouts a year. You couldn't have enough boards. So things have massively sort of changed. The way leisure has all changed. You didn't have kite surfers back then in the 30s. And, so the William and Kate Johnston motorboat lifeboat that you see, that's a historic lifeboat that's still operational, but it was abandoned at a marina. So we've recently, charity's been set up to bring that back to the Wirral. So that's in the process of happening now.
Brilliant.
So that's quite an exciting development. So we've had some generations of families, but there isn't any now, certainly.
Thank you very much, Lee.
Well, pleasure, guys. Thank you so much. So what's the? Actually, you better give your mic back. So when are you heading back home? Are you
tomorrow?
Tomorrow.
Yeah.
Oh, good. So you're staying in Morton tonight, is this?
Possibly. I'll switch this off.